working hard until burnout and expecting to coast does not work, period.
Dr. Flora Sinha is a board-certified internal medicine physician and mindset coach, and is also known for her advocacy around infertility awareness. How did your cultural upbringing and checking these boxes impact that you had secondary infertility?
Shame, guilt, embarrassment, anger, frustration, and I took my fertility for granted. After a very difficult number of years, we just found clarity. And it was almost like a logistical approach. Instead of making decisions emotionally and out of things that I didn't unpack from childhood and from my own mentality, I don't know where we would have been, really, to be quite honest. I was crying. I'm talking about snot, wailing, pounding on the steering wheel. I was so angry. And I had already started my mindset journey at this time. And I remember I called my office manager right then and there. And I told her, I need to take a break. All she said was, you got it. I'm here for you whenever you need it. She didn't ask questions. And that was, I think, the first time ever that I took a break for myself and actually grieved and processed and started to truly undo my burnout.
Hi, Flora. Welcome to All Over Again podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. And you're joining us today from Los Angeles.
That's correct.
Sunny Los Angeles.
It has been sunny. I do not take this weather for granted, ever.
I am so jealous and I miss being back on the West Coast.
Well, whenever you're back, let me know.
I will. Hopefully sooner than later, because I'm on my annual sort of, I don't know if it's like a quest or a rampage to, move us back to the West Coast. It's the weather. It does that to me. Usually it's January
I can
through
see
April.
that. Absolutely. And that's a very common time. Days are shorter, less sunlight, weather's a little less predictable. So I understand that.
Well, speaking of sunlight, we're going to talk a lot about mood and mindset. First off, I would love for our guests to get to know you a little bit better. How would you describe yourself in 3 adjectives?
I would describe myself as grounded, insightful, and flawed.
Oh, I appreciate the realism, right? Because aren't we all a little flawed? But not many of us would actually say that. And are you saying that it sounds like a positive the way you say it? Do you view it as positive?
Yes, this is how I doctor and this is how I coach. I coach from vulnerability and transparency. And I never want anyone, my coaching clients, my followers, my patients, I don't want anyone to ever look at me as like this perfect person. I have just taken the time to learn the tools and techniques and get the education to apply them, which I think we can all do.
And we're going to talk a lot about that, and I'm very excited to dive in. And I don't want to assume anything here, but maybe there's a segue to my next question. What gets you out of bed every morning?
Yeah, this is a great segue. It's really my purpose, and I have multiple of them. I am a mom of a 10-year-old beautiful little girl who is testing my every nerve as she's going through her tween stages. But the opportunity to be the mom and fill in the blanks that I didn't have growing up through no fault of my mom is truly such a gift. And having the purpose of self-growth and applying that to myself and helping others, whether it's from a coach perspective or a physician perspective, it never gets boring. It never gets old. And it really just gets me out of bed. And I always ask the question throughout the day, how can I not only be better and do better, but how can I create more to help and to be in service? And That's what gets me out of bed, whether it's, again, to my daughter, to my husband, to my dog, clients, patients, whoever it may be. How can I have a positive impact on someone's life today?
And that it's very interesting that you're talking about this connection that you now have to your purpose. How did all of these factors of being first generation American, Southeast Asian, perhaps affect your finding your purpose, or have you always had it?
In short, no, I definitely did not always have this purpose. Growing in a traditional South Asian family, having immigrant parents, created a lot of generational and cultural clashes. There were a lot of expectations that didn't quite match the privilege that our parents created for us. And growing up, there were check boxes that I had to meet. And I'm sure a lot of other immigrant children or children of immigrants can also relate to it. Growing up, my check boxes were do very well in school, be successful, get married, have nice things, have a lot of kids, and live your life happily ever after. And I thought after I met those check boxes, I could, in fact, coast through life. And that's just the way I interpreted what I was taught. Obviously, my parents never said those exact words, but that is what was seen as successful in our culture. And it makes sense, right? Our immigrant parents came to this country with next to nothing, worked incredibly hard, busted their butts to get where they were and become financially comfortable and successful. And they wanted to apply, and they, to a certain extent, did apply that same formula to their children. But where the gap is that obviously culturally it's very different here, and working hard until burnout and expecting to coast does not work, period, no matter where you are. And that is accepted, or was accepted, and that's what really brought me to my purpose now, is realizing that. I think my major turning point was when I went through secondary infertility. And for those who don't know, secondary infertility is when you are able to have a successful pregnancy and birth without medical intervention, but when you try again to expand your family, you're unable to. So that's what happened to me. We had Gia, no issues, a little bit of a traumatic birth story for another day, but otherwise she's happy, healthy, and we had no issues getting pregnant. And the next thing on my checkbox or my checklist was grow my family. And that was seen as successful, whether it's 2, 4, 5 kids, make sure you have a large family to carry on your name.
So I'm listening to everything you're sharing. And by the way, I'm a first generation American as well. My parents are from Europe. And so a lot of the things that you share resonate with me. Certainly the expectation and almost this is the way it's supposed to be, and almost this inherent and my parents never said this, but we gave you this life. You should be so appreciative for it. But I didn't know any different, of course. And I see now how hard they worked. Your parents, it sounds like too. My parents, the American dream. I have so much appreciation and respect for that now because I'm older. I didn't understand that as a child. And you're right, there's cultural norms that are different between Europe and here. And I'm sure in the Southeast Asian culture and here. And as you talk about infertility, and you and I have discussed our similarities and on that front too, different types of, right? But at the crux the same, and that root of shame. So how did your cultural upbringing and checking these boxes impact that you had secondary infertility? Like, what were your thoughts about what next? Did you have shame associated with it?
Absolutely. Shame, guilt, embarrassment, anger, frustration. I mean, name all the emotions, and I know many could connect to it. Growing up, I was taught that if you work hard and devote your 100% to something, you will be successful in that task or goal. And I took my fertility for granted. And I thought if I did everything right, if I took care of my health, if I was in a good mental mindset, if I followed all the rules, right, all the rules to increase my probability of getting pregnant, easy, not a problem. I could do it. And I probably went through one of the most hardest pivoting points of my life. It was a shock. There was a lot of self-blame, especially being in the field of medicine. And in our generation in general, we tend to delay our pregnancies and delay growing our families because of our careers. And I knew I did not want babies in residency, even though I was in the prime age to procreate. I just wasn't in the right mindset, physical set. I was working 80 to 100 hours a week. I could not, in my right mind, handle that, plus another baby human. And so that was, I think, how I reacted. And it stemmed from this teaching that work hard and you'll get whatever you want, when in reality, life doesn't always work that way.
It's a very important point and very telling too, that if you're used to achieving, if you work hard enough, right, and you always were able to hit all of the marks, but then there's this one thing that's supposed to come naturally that isn't happening, and you're not able to hit the mark. And oh, and by the way, you're also a physician and you're supposed to be the expert in all things anatomically. I can imagine that that had to have been so difficult. So what did that look like? How did you get through it? How did you get through it with your family? And did you share anything with your extended family?
So answering your first question there, as every type A woman out there, I tried to take control over everything. So after my diagnosis and moving forward with a fertility specialist and moving forward with going through IVF, anyone who's gone through any fertility hardship knows that we're not in control of a lot. I became so type A about everything I ate, everything that I did, my doctor's appointments, alarms, labeled alarms on my phone just to know when I took my medication. And on top of that, I was a full-time practicing physician with a toddler, battling a Los Angeles commute. And in my head, if I could do it all, I would be successful. And that's what I tried to do. Going through IVF is another full-time job. Not only do you have a set of medications that you need to time specifically, you have inundated with doctor's appointments and lab draws. And at any point in time, that entire schedule can change because our bodies just don't follow textbooks sometimes. And that is when I hit a burnout point. I became obsessed and I was in this spiral of shame, guilt, envy, and I was angry at everything, everyone, including myself. So that was a huge pivoting point for me when I realized my daughter at one point, who was 3 at the time, was too scared to hug me because she was afraid she was going to hurt me. She literally said,
Wow.
"Mommy, you have so many ouchies. I can't hug you right now."
Oh.
And in my field, someone who's sick, it looks very different. They're not walking, talking, working, mommying, wifing, doing all the things that I was doing. And it stopped me in my tracks that if my 3-year-old has noticed that she has to walk on eggshells, and my husband was already doing that, what type of message is that sending to her, my family? And speaking of which, naturally, I am the type of person who is very transparent and very open. That's how I connect with people, and that's how I grow my relationships. So yes, I was very open with my parents, my in-laws, my siblings, everybody in my immediate family. Later, I did learn as I started going through my own mindset journey and started to put in the work that because of the cultural differences, they didn't emotionally provide what I needed at the time. Again, through no fault of their own, you don't know what you don't know. And so I started reaching out to people for different things, for emotional support, for physical support. My parents, my in-laws, they were there at a drop of a hat anytime we needed help, taking care of our daughter, or if I needed a little bit of a break and an extra pair of hands. My husband was in fellowship during this time, by the way, which is another grueling training program. So it was a lot for all of us to balance.
Can imagine.
Yeah, but I did learn a lot from there from a boundary perspective.
So how did the impact of secondary infertility affect your relationship with your family, especially once you realize that they might be, especially your daughter, might be a little bit more aware than you thought she was?
I realized at that point that I had to change. I could not change my circumstances. I couldn't change my diagnosis. I can only control so much when it came to IVF. But the outcome, this is a mean game of probability. And
so hard.
Right? And I had full trust in my medical team, knowing that they're doing their best. I knew I was doing my best. But the missing key here was my foundation, which was my family. And without their positive mindset or healthier mindset and support, I was crumbling. So that's when I decided I had to undo my burnout. There was this one moment I still remember. I was pregnant after a successful transfer, and I had unfortunately lost the pregnancy in the doctor's office.
Oh my God.
So I was in the yes, and my husband wasn't there because at that time it was just a routine check. We weren't expecting it. And so I was in this parking garage, and I was crying. I'm talking about snot, wailing, pounding on the steering wheel. I was so angry. And I had already started my mindset journey at this time. And I remember I called my office manager right then and there. And I told her, you know what? I need to take a break. I am canceling all my patients for the next 4 weeks, effective immediately. And I still thank her for this. All she said was, you got it. I'm here for you whenever you need it. She didn't ask questions. She didn't ask why. She didn't say but. She's like, I got you. And that was, I think, the first time ever that I took a break for myself and actually grieved and processed and started to truly undo my burnout and pivot. So not only did I undo it, I went back to a different expectation.
What was the new expectation, and what did your grieving process to get to that new expectation look like?
The grieving process was actually interesting. That's when I started my journey on social media, and I started sharing my fertility diagnosis journey. Back then it wasn't publicized as much. Connecting with others who were also going through similar processes was just so healing for me. And in our culture, talking about negative experiences, bad things that are happening around you is a no-no. You don't do that because that just casts more negativity upon you. But I learned that that was just so healing for me, knowing that I wasn't isolated and that other people, when I said I felt guilty because I couldn't give my daughter a sibling, the person on the other end knew exactly what type of guilt I was feeling. They identified with it. And that was what I did for 4 weeks. I took time for myself. I connected with other people. I used a different part of my brain that I wasn't used to. And then when I went back to work, I put up a lot of boundaries with my patients. I love my patients. I'm here for them, but I'm also human, and I was a human going through a lot at the time. So no more double bookings, no more add-ons. When I'm done, I am done, and I go home to my family. They were at the top of my list. And of course, myself, I was up there too. And that changed a lot. That changed how I approached medicine as a physician with healthy boundaries. We sacrifice ourselves in the name of service, but if that's at the expense of ourselves and our mentality, then we can't provide in the same way. So that was a huge turning point and change for me.
During your 4-week break, it sounds like you tapped back into what your new needs were. And at this point, did you realize yet that this burnout could become a different sort of vertical or extension of your practice in a sense, right? Because you are now the consummate multi-hyphenate, right? Because you have multiple titles. You're an internist, you are a mindset coach, you're a mom, and you're a podcast host. So now that you are understanding that this burnout is real, how it's affected you, is that the moment that you decided to pursue this sort of extension of your practice by becoming a coach? Like, what did that journey and evolution look like?
Great question. No, not at the time. I used my burnout education mindset work to work on myself first. And what I actually started to do is apply that to patient care. So I injected that into my primary care practice. I had numerous patients coming to me with anxiety, depression, feeling of overwhelm, stress, and I identified with that. We all do. And so I would inject these little mindset tips within my patients, or even, how to wrap your head around being diagnosed with something new that's life-changing. I started applying that to my patients, and it was actually around 2020 when the pandemic hit. A lot of primary care doctors were on the front line in a sense where the advice was, if you have questions about your symptoms, you go to your primary care doctor. Well, guess what? At the time, primary care doctors didn't know what was going on either. We were learning from all the cases overseas and trying to advise at a point where the advice was changing week by week. And I hit my second point in burnout at the time.
You got a new job and you didn't even sign up for it. I mean, that's so, you were expected to be the expert on a subject that everyone was learning about. And I'm now going back in time and remembering, yes, the primary care physicians are who you go to assess your symptoms. And wow, you were really on those front lines. How insane.
And I was scared because I didn't know fully, right? In the first month for sure, we didn't clearly know what was going on. I was taking off my scrubs in the garage and entering the house thinking that I was carrying COVID with me. It was a heavy time. And when I went back to clinic, healthcare had changed and patients had changed. There was more angst about the disease. There was a lot more misinformation that we were fighting that was just running rampant online, whether it's through social media or through articles. It was a whole different burden that we were carrying. I was spending half of the appointments just myth busting with science. And it wasn't really a role that I thought I was ever going to play. So as I was
therapy?
Kind of a little bit. As I was injecting these mindset tips into my practice, I just realized, you don't need to see your doctor to learn all of this. You can actually go to someone that has been through it and identifies with the burnout and the spiral and all the things that really build up to it. And I could actually help others in my non-medical setting. So that is actually when I started my coaching practice. Opened up mid 2020, 2021, and I've been building since. And currently I'm building self-guided courses for those who don't have the bandwidth to do one-on-one coaching yet. So I'm just trying to expand all the advice and try to get it to as many people as I can.
Give us an idea of what one-on-one mindset coaching looks like. And if you wouldn't mind, perhaps share one of your favorite mindset coaching techniques.
You know, when you see working women in general out and about and they're burnt out and they're feeling drained and they think this is the norm, they think like this is what being a working woman or working mom looks like. That is where I come in. And so my clients, they come to me spiraling, kind of living in this chaos to living in the same chaos, but not internally. So we go through mindset tools and techniques that are curated for them. And I take a separate approach. I take a very distinct approach because it's very easy to get a list of mindset tips, right? Meditate, work out, drink plenty of water, take deep breaths. That I could chat GPT that. However, if you don't know your now and you haven't unpacked how you got to your now, you don't know when to apply these wonderful, wonderful tools and techniques. And that's where one-on-one coaching comes in. And with I call it my AAA method. So audit, awareness, and action. So the audit phase is where we identify and we actually verbalize the now. Where are you right now? How do you react? I understand you're feeling these negative emotions, but in the moment, and what are your triggers? And how are you currently reacting? We do that. We unpack a little bit about how we got there. And then we start building awareness, which these two steps are the crucial steps that most people skip when it comes to any form of self-growth and mindset work. They just start applying the action plan, which is great, but it's not sustainable. And so that's where the beauty of one-on-one work. It's a Band-Aid, absolutely. And again, it works for the short term, right? If you're feeling overwhelmed, you do some box breathing, great. But what about when everything's blowing up in your life? You know, what if all of your kids are sick and it's a busy season at work and your partner's out of town and the dog just threw up? Like, the box breathing may help for a few minutes, when in reality, you have to put out different fires in your brain as the different fires are going on the outside. And if you don't know how to do that personalized to you, it could be very difficult to regulate yourself.
How can people really check in as adults to understand their dysregulation? Because I think by the time you're an adult, unless you're like screaming, right, and like forcibly angry, like viscerally, how does one who has always been a certain way understand that they're even dysregulated in the first place, if it's always been their go-to?
Such a great question. The first, I think the easiest way to identify if you are feeling, I just call it feeling chaotic, right? There's the external chaos that we can't always control the circumstances, but then there's the internal chaos. One of the easiest ways to identify whether you are feeling chaotic on the inside is to do a body check-in. So head to toe. I actually do this every morning when I'm driving to work. I identify, okay, am I raising my eyebrows? Am I walking around like this? Meaning I'm alarmed. I am aware, maybe a little too much. Am I clenching my jaw? Meaning maybe nervous, maybe stressed out. Am I relaxing the bottom of my mouth or is it clenched? And I don't know if this is on video, but you can tell the difference when you're seeing someone versus feeling it. Are my shoulders hunched up a little bit or are they rolled forward? It could be a sign of, again, stress. It could be a sign of fatigue. It could be a sign of a lot of different external stressors versus, do I have good posture? Are my shoulders down? Are they rolled back? How am I breathing? Am I taking shallow breaths or am I taking deep breaths regularly? Am I interrupting my shallow breaths with deep breaths? Because that could be a sign of, again, you need rest. I always check in with my intestines, your gut. There's so much research behind the brain gut connection where it's connected hormonally. So if you're stressed out, anxious, depressed, feeling like not yourself, that will affect your gut in so many different ways. How does my body feel? Am I sore? Do I feel well rested? Am I sore because I did a hard workout? Or am I sore because I haven't been moving my body enough? So these quick head to toe, it takes 60 seconds. Talking it out obviously takes a little bit longer, but doing a quick 1 minute check-in with yourself not only gives you time to be present, but it allows you to identify your now and perhaps make an action plan to help heal some of those physical ailments that you may be experiencing.
I am learning so much from your awareness. I'm also finding myself as you're sharing this going, do I have posture right now? Do you ever notice yourself checking out someone and saying, wow, she's had a really rough day?
All the time. It's horrible. And also as a physician, you can talk to a lot of physicians and they'll say the same thing. Like my dermatologist friends will be like, oh, I definitely saw skin cancer while I was waiting in line at Starbucks. We're just always looking. But yes, I do recognize facial expressions. I do recognize, especially in my patients who come in too, before we even start the conversation, I recognize their posture. Are they lying down? Did they just come up from a nap after waiting for about 10, 15 minutes for me to come in? It kind of gives me the baseline and the foundation of how I may approach the appointment or a difficult conversation. But yes, out and about, I do try to be aware of others, but more so than that, actually, I try to be present and more aware of how I'm doing and how I'm feeling, because it's my only time to check in with myself when I'm active doing things and serving and around my family. I don't really take too much time for myself because I have already blocked out time to check in with myself and kind of figure out where my regulation stands for the day.
How has your found mindset practice affected your relationship with your husband and your daughter?
Prior to my mindset work, I was very volatile. That's what I saw when I was growing up. If I was angry, we would explode. We would get it all out there on the table, don't get me wrong, but it would go from 0 to 100 very quickly and then back down very quickly. So then there's all this built up resentment. And the volatility was just seen as, it's okay, let's brush it under the rug and move on. My husband grew up very differently. He grew up actually in the opposite environment where everyone goes silent. And then they brush it up under the rug and move forward. So it was interesting seeing us kind of meet each other in the middle, me using my communication skills, which is where I learned, a lot of my boundary setting from tone, verbiage, facial expressions. I'm very expressive and my face tells a lot. And I've learned after a lot of work to hold this in a certain expression if I can while speaking. I learned a lot about communicating and so did he. So he was less scared to open up about what he was feeling during the fertility journey, especially. I think as women, we go through the brunt of it physically, mentally, but our partners go through a lot too. So that was actually very eye-opening for the both of us that he was feeling low and he was feeling his own set of guilt because as my partner, he wanted me happy and he was giving me shots every night and he didn't want to cause me pain. There were so many little things that we unpacked, and we just continued to carry on a lot of those communication skills that we learned about each other into our marriage and into now. And it, especially right now where, again, we're going through a very difficult tween stage. And I know this is just the beginning, but communicating with my daughter, and instead of going from 0 to 100 or being silent and forgetting about it, we are teaching each other how to verbalize. No matter how uncomfortable things may be, even if the timing may be not 100% right, verbalizing in our household has changed everything. And verbalizing a certain way, the correct way, which, we can always go into detail, but everyone receives criticism differently. And knowing that pattern is really important when you're communicating.
What is something that your daughter has taught you about yourself?
This has actually been relatively recent in the last year. I have this insane fear that I am failing my daughter whenever she is feeling bad about herself. And it sounds weird when I say it out loud. I've said this out loud so many times to myself. It sounds so silly. We all go through hardships. We all go through low moments. And I can't control what she feels or what goes on at school or, at her extracurriculars, but I was projecting a lot of that fear onto her. So if she had a hard day at school with friends, that it wasn't the end of the world, things will get better. Another thing kind of to piggyback alongside that is, as a parent, you cannot ride your child's roller coasters because, oh my gosh, we already have so much on our plates, but we got to ride our kids' roller coasters who are, again, they're all over the place with hormones and brain development and physical development. It's a heavy time for them. I have learned to be the regulator for her as well until she develops that trait and until her brain and body catches up. We have to be that for them and not project our own fears onto our own kids. That has happened recently that I've caught myself and had to do an about change.
What are some tips insofar as self-regulating when those moments come up? And I'm asking you this all, by the way, because I see you, I get you. My daughter's not too far behind yours, and she's already a sassy little thing. And, sometimes some of the things that she shares, I'm kind of like, do I need to have a discussion with that person's parent? And then I have to be like, okay, stop. That is not, okay, she can figure this out. This is figure outable. Everything is figure outable.
Love that quote, by the way.
What was that?
I said, I love that quote, by the way, Marie Forleo. She's great.
Everything is figure outable. So that's why I asked the question. That's a little background. I'm genuinely, personally very curious about this.
So Natalie, what you just did is a piece of advice that I always give to my clients: talking it out. Not outwardly to your child, but in here, or taking a little bit of a break, taking a minute and grounding yourself. Like, okay, if I talk to the parents, what is the consequence of that? Well, will she be able to stand up for herself? Will she be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations in the future? Is this bad enough where I do need to get involved, actually? We do need parental involvement. Versus, it's not the end of the world. Natalie, you got this. Let's figure out some talking points. Let's just maybe not even find a resolution to what's happening, but just get the communication out there in the open. So talking yourself down is incredibly important. The first thing that I do is I take a deep breath. I've been taking a lot of them lately. It physiologically sends a signal to your brain to get out of this fight or flight mode. It calms your heart rate down, which again tells the brain, Everything is okay. You don't need to jump right now. As soon as that happens, I think clarity also builds and you're able to respond with the anticipation of, okay, now's a good time to have a conversation versus, okay, I didn't like that tone. I found it disrespectful. Why don't we chat about it after school? I love you. That way, you kind of got it out. You're not screaming, you're not yelling, you're not blaming, and you're ending it with the fact that regardless of how our conversation goes, I will always be there for you. I still love you, even though I'm not quite happy right now with the tone, the behavior, whatever it may be. So the deep breath, the self-talk, and then the clarity of the communication and the decision of what to say afterwards, I think is kind of the trio that I personally do myself and I apply to my coaching clients. And not only with their kids, by the way, with their adult family members who may be triggering, with coworkers who, may get under their skin a little bit. It really puts us back in control versus having others discuss what we should be feeling or deciding on, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I feel like I'm having therapy right now. I really appreciate this.
Me too. This is so cathartic for me.
I love this. It's amazing to me how being a parent is actually teaching me so much, because I'm hearing you speak and I'm also realizing like I'm the type of person that has had to work really hard at not getting an answer right away and resolving things right away. Like I want to get it out there and resolve it and have the closure and then move on. And I realize after, again, having a spouse who does not react that way, he needs to take time. I don't like the time. I want it to just be done. And I realized that I've started applying that, or had been applying that, in my relationship with my child. And so it's interesting to I'm trying to teach her to take a break and walk away, but then I was not practicing it. In fact, she's the one who told me. She's like, you always tell me to take a break when you're mad, but you're actually still talking to me. And I'm like, I know. Can we just talk it out? She's like, no. And I'm like, why do you know more than I do right now? This is not.
But Natalie, that's you. That is you teaching her, right? That's a testament. Right. That's a testament, though, of you teaching her to a point where she's now recognizing it. That is incredible. So if I were you, I'd just give yourself a pat on your back.
Oh, thank you. She's also, I'm not teaching myself. She's teaching me. It's really kind of insane. Very difficult, small humans are actually our teachers in so many ways. And I didn't see that coming. And that certainly was not the role that my parents would have ever shared publicly about, what my sister and I were, doing, for them. It would be quite the contrary, right? So it's just a fascinating evolvement of how dynamics have really shifted with children. And I am sincerely hoping that by the way we are communicating with them and we are learning from them and vice versa, that they will be more aware than I was anyway. And hopefully we'll have less issue to deal with later. And so it's amazing that, and it makes sense to me that you have patients that are already, coming to you for medical needs, but there's so much more to it with your background, truly in community and quite frankly, therapy. It makes, really therapy, right? You have to sit and help somebody sit with all of the rough that happens as a result of the things that are perhaps happening to them physiologically and physically. So I find it so fascinating. It feels like there has been a natural segue for you from medicine to the coaching. And I thought it was really interesting. You shared something it was an anecdotal story, and there's an exact, very specific segue and correlation between what you shared and what you're doing now alongside of practicing medicine. Would you mind sharing what it is that we would not be able to find out about you if we were to Google about you?
I entered my freshman year as a business major, and it was simply because my parents, like 2 weeks before I left, were like, hey, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure. And they're like, why don't you go into medicine? Think about it. And in my brain, I'm like, because you said that, I'm actually going to do the opposite. So I declared an accounting major, or I think I was in business and I had to take an accounting class. I failed miserably. I ended my freshman year with like a less than 2.0 GPA. And it was embarrassing. And my parents were so upset with me. And then that's what I had to really be real with myself and recognize that this is my life that I am dealing with. It's not about my parents. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving myself right, that I could do something and be successful and meet those check boxes. So I delved into the sciences, which I naturally loved. And 3 years later, it clicked. There was a moment when I was doing volunteer work that it clicked to me that I belong in medicine. I belong in the medical field, and I want to call the shots. And that's where my journey into becoming a doctor began. But yeah, I think everyone also assumes I was this cookie cutter brown student, this little good little Indian girl. To a certain extent, I was, but I always had this like urge in me I've always talked back. I've always stood my ground, not in the best of ways, I will say, but I've always had this inside of me. I just didn't know how to curate it. I didn't know how to effectively relay it. And so I did a lot of things that my parents weren't happy with, but I think in the end I turned out okay, someone that they're proud of.
I can see very well that you turned out more than okay. And that fire really helped you get to where you are. But I love that there was a correlation between, yes, medicine, but the medicine to coaching it's also very like bedside manner and helpful and therapeutic, but at the same time, there's a business element to that. So I actually really appreciate that you were an innovator. You were ahead of your time. You knew that there was some element of business that was going to serve you and serve others. You just hadn't tapped into it yet, maybe. I don't know. Like I literally like see that. So it's interesting that you may not have seen it as like a success, but it's like you were literally ahead of your time because coaching kind of marries everything together, right? In a
you
way.
know what, Natalie? I never actually have tied this to that story. So this is just like a mind-blowing like moment right now. And what I'll add one more little story to this. So my parents are very into like palm reading. And so we were in India when I was 16 and we took all of us to a palm reader. And the first thing he told me, he said, you're going to go into business. And at that time, my parents were like, oh my gosh, no, she's going into the sciences and how dare you, whatever. And in my head, I was also going to go into the sciences because that's what I was told. And so it's interesting that, again, in this moment, I'm doing both and kind of going against this, you need to be put in this box that I grew up with, that you could do it all. You can use your education to expand what you do while protecting yourself. I just told a patient this, that I am working more now. I'm pulling more hours now than I have ever pulled while being a working physician. But I'm balanced doing it and I'm happy and I'm content. And yeah, sometimes I spiral, but I know how to bring myself back to my middle ground. And it's just fulfilling. And that's possible in whatever field you end up, getting your formal education in, that you can expand and you can be creative within that realm.
As I'm hearing you speak, I'm hearing a starting all over again story, right? I mean, some people have
Yes.
their, like, when I think of my podcast, I think of it in two ways. Like, what would you do all over again? Yes, like do differently to potentially have a different outcome. And then the other part is, what are you doing all over again? And it's amazing because there's sort of a combination I'm feeling on both ends for you, right? Like I feel like especially the new beginnings and the new chapters and the new iterations of what has happened next, the new beginnings, like it's really cool, but you're still carrying forth your experience and your life lessons and moving it into the next step. So with that said, do you have an all over again story? I mean, is there something that you feel like in hindsight you would do all over again?
I've been asked this question before, and I always instinctively say, of course, I would do this all over again because I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be me if I didn't experience those things. I am a little envious, though, of our children who are being passed on these emotional, intelligent tips and tricks. And if I had those mindsets back then, I'm curious to see if I would have reached a goal, whatever that may be, quicker and with less roller coasters involved. But honestly, I'm here for a reason. I went through those things for a reason. Especially everything that started it was the infertility journey. And spoiler alert, we don't have more children. Because of my mindset work and the clarity, my husband and I had decided that, you know what, we're actually very, very happy as a family of three. And the turmoil of what was involved with trying to have another child was actually weighing a lot heavier than moving forward as a family of three. And so I don't know if I would have come to that decision without going through what I have gone through. Maybe I wouldn't have started doing all of this on social media and podcasting and coaching. So in short, yeah, I think I'd definitely do that again if I knew this was the end point.
How did mindset coaching help you find resolve with having one child?
Without the spiral and that internal chaos, and using Sanjay, my husband, and Gia, my daughter, as kind of my grounding forces, after a multitude of trials and transfers and unsuccessful transfers and lost pregnancies, miscarriages, after a very difficult number of years, we just found clarity. And it was almost like a logistical approach. Like, okay, if we go through one more round and we have a child, would we be happy? Yeah. If we get a loss, are we prepared to go through yet another loss? Yeah, I think we are. If we stop right now, what does that trajectory look like? What does that look like physically, mentally, as a family? And that is how we talked about it. It sounds so unemotional, really, right now, but that's what mindset work brought me to. Instead of making decisions emotionally and out of things that I didn't unpack from childhood and from my own mentality, I don't know where we would have been, really, to be quite honest. I don't know if we would have gone to yet another, endless journey of IVF versus another trajectory. I have no idea, but it was literally sitting down and approaching it from a logistics standpoint. And it was crystal clear at that time. It became easy. It wasn't easy getting there, but it did become easy.
That's a beautiful realization. And I think that, also as a parent to only one, and I shouldn't say only one, like the one, if you will.
The one, yes.
Right? It's really refreshing to hear how people arrive at their resolve. So thank you for sharing that. And I would love to know if you had a platform that could reach every woman in the world, what would you say?
The first thing, and I don't, I know this is a statement that is said a lot right now, but lead with compassion. I think we are so quick to act, to judge, to react that we don't take a beat to empathize and put ourselves in someone else's shoes, whether that behavior or whatever we see online is negative. Just look at the big picture. Take a moment and lead with kindness and kind of unlearn that reactive impulse that we all have, especially around social media and these 30-second clips. The second thing, and more importantly, is do not be afraid to invest in yourself. Whether that is investing time, money, because you have an idea or because you want to grow or you want to improve your relationships. The biggest reason people stay stuck is because they don't put in the time, the effort, whatever monetary value there needs to be towards changing. So don't let that scare you, or don't let that stop you. You should always come first.
Thank you for these profound words of wisdom. I'm going to carry them with me today and moving forward. And I am so grateful that I got to see you again. And I'm grateful to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure. It was such a wonderful, wonderful discussion. I can't wait to see you in person, actually hug you in person one day.
I know. I would really love that. Dr. Flora, do you have any parting words for our guests?
Yes. So as I said before, don't be afraid to invest in yourself. So take that first step. Follow me on Instagram at Dr. Flora Sinha. I have a ton of mindset tips and tricks that you can apply now. And then if you're ready to delve in to do the work, I am building courses. You can find that all through my Instagram. And if you're ready to really put in the hard work and take some time and effort for yourself, sign up for one-on-one coaching with me. I am currently taking new clients.
I want to be one of them. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm serious.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Natalie. We'll get you connected.